Hello. For those who I haven't met yet, I'm Emily. My partner, fiance, Jenna, and I live in Saanich with our 2 kids, who we co-parent with their dad, my ex-husband, which, yes, is as confusing as it sounds, but I'll get to that. But before I begin, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge once again, as Catherine did, that we are gathered on the traditional and ancestral territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples. Were it not for their stewardship of these lands since time immemorial, we would not have this beautiful place to live. Land acknowledgements are always appropriate, but they seem somehow all the more fitting this month during Pride Month. After all, our Indigenous siblings got a lot, if not all of the things really right. The belief that the land is a living being, a living, breathing being, and that everything and everyone is sacred. That includes 2 spirited folks who, until we showed up with our slightly wacky ideas, were revered as having been given special spiritual gifts and the ability to move between gender roles and spaces, which sort of ties into what I want to speak about today. It's easy to look around. I am short. It's easy to look around during June and see rainbow t-shirts and flags, tote bags, insert literally any other profitable product that is beneficial in a capitalist society, and assume that we're doing pretty well with the whole diversity and inclusion thing. But the reality is that even in 2024, the heteronormative narrative still dominates the media that we consume. Coming out is still hard, and it can still feel difficult at times to tell who is a true ally and who is not. Growing up in an affluent, waspy neighborhood in Vancouver, my childhood was one centered around private school, dance, musical and academic achievements, and vacations, all comfortably enjoyed on a doctor's salary. My parents were still together. They're coming up on their 50th wedding anniversary next year. And barring some tragic disease or freak accident, everyone I knew had both a mom and a dad. Sure, celebrities like Rosie O'Donnell had a wife, and we were all fairly convinced that Stedman was just Oprah's beard and she and Gail were really lifelong lovers. But no one in my immediate circle was anything other than straight. All in all, life was pretty good. But then one of my siblings began to struggle with mental health and addiction issues, and the focus quickly shifted, in my mind at least, to people-pleasing. With all the stress that my parents were under constantly, my one and only concern in the world was how to avoid causing them any more grief. I take responsibility for this mindset now. I realize that no one explicitly told me I had to be perfect, but somehow in the storm of codependence in our house, I thought that if I could just play the part of the good daughter, the predictable one, the one who went to university, found a nice boy, got married, had babies, which clearly there was only one way to do. If I could just make it easier on them, then maybe they would somehow, it would lessen the blow of the unrelenting unpredictability and volatility that they experienced on a daily basis. I've asked myself a million times why I didn't come out when I was younger. It's not like I knew deep down in my heart and wrestled with how to break the sensitive news to people. I wasn't afraid of how my friends or family would take it. In fact, my mother often reassured us how fine she would be with it upon hearing someone else's kid was gay. But the, "of course nothing could change how we love you," was always followed up with, "but I would be sad for how your life would be harder in this world." It's not like I didn't come out as a teen for fear of repercussions, although the all-girls private school thing would have been tough. The problem was much more deeply entrenched. I had absolutely no clue, because it was just never even a possibility. I assumed everyone was uncomfortable with boys, and that intimacy always felt like you were playing a part in a movie about someone else. Sometimes we forget that for some people, there isn't even a closet to hide in. There's just emptiness. But like I said, I still went on to check all the boxes of the low maintenance kid. So you can imagine my shock when 8 years into a marriage with a great guy, and now being the mom of 2 beautiful babies, I realized why things didn't quite feel like they fit. The brokenness for which I had blamed myself for so long, the shame of not feeling attracted to my spouse, the disassociated feeling I would feel whenever my friends spoke about their love lives. I mean, didn't everyone agree that God just used a little bit more finesse on the female form? It all just suddenly made sense. But what should have been this beautiful moment of self-realization was immediately overshadowed by what it would mean if I actually acted on these feelings. The path of devastation I would leave in my wake made it the hardest decision I've ever made. I had envisioned Craig and me growing old together, and our kids having one house to come home to on breaks from university. We had chickens and a vegetable garden, and I pictured myself late into my 70s tending to both. I never imagined having to go through a divorce and having to sort out a timeshare arrangement for the babies that I made myself. And I know they were trying to be encouraging, but I wanted to puke every time someone applauded me for living my authentic life. For most people, this was a celebratory occasion, but it just felt awful and I hated myself. My life, my family were falling apart, and while I knew I wasn't to blame per se, there seemed to be nobody else to place it on. I felt like I had just lost us the championship game by scoring a goal on my own net. I'm sure there's a joke somewhere in there about switching teams, but I'll leave it. Coming out cost me almost everything I had, and there's still emotional and some even financial consequences that I experience to this day, 5 years later. Despite all of that, I don't regret how any of it played out. Had I realized sooner in life, I may have avoided breaking his heart, but we wouldn't have our kids. And the freedom and acceptance that comes with queer love, truthfully, is difficult to even put into words. As with many marginalized communities, there's intersectionality with racial, indigenous, socioeconomic, and disability justice. There's body positivity and genuine acceptance for however you need to show up on a given day. I am so proud of the life that I've built, and I feel lucky to live in a place where having 2 houses and 3 parents is welcome. But this pride, I would challenge you all to examine more closely the work that is still left to do. Who still has rainbows in their windows after this month is over? Who is appropriating queer culture for the sake of revenue? Who is saying nothing at all? At the school I just started working at, we recently had Rainbow Week. Obviously, I was stoked. But then the first announcement came over the PA system on Monday morning. Remember, friends, love is love, which means you can love anyone no matter where they're from or what color skin they have. And I was like, is anyone going to talk about the giant rainbow elephant in the room? So I actually went and spoke with the principal. And I walked into her office and said, I noticed that despite it being Rainbow Week, and you picking a slogan coined by the gay rights movement, you made 0 mention of the queer community. I was then told how there was a whole big thing last year, and some parents got upset, and drag story time was canceled because parents and staff had to debate for so long about whether or not it would poison the young minds of our children that the company actually pulled their services for fear of their performer not feeling safe. 3 pride flags were pulled down, torn off the flagpoles, and stolen. On and on and on it went. And yet I stood there waiting for a good reason for the current attitude of the school. And there was none. None except cowardice. It was easier to dance around the issue and say nothing explicit. Don't rock the boat, and no one will be upset. Except we all know that that's not how it works. Doing the right thing and speaking up about injustices will always upset someone. What matters is that you're on the right side. I was assured that the school was affirming and supported gay rights, but that's the thing with advocacy. If you don't walk the walk or talk the talk, it's really tough for anyone to tell you're actually an ally. That week, the administration chose to avoid difficult conversations with parents, rather than validating the many non-binary, transitioning, and queer students in our little elementary school. And as the only out and proud staff member who was queer, and who had just proposed to her fiancé the Sunday before Rainbow Week started, I certainly didn't feel seen either. I wouldn't trade what I have now for anything, but I do dream about an even better time when Rainbow Week will actually be allowed to be Rainbow Week, and we won't lose a third of our students because their parents in other religions choose to keep them home. What if we made announcements over PA systems telling trans kids that they're beautiful? What if we talked to our kids so much about the different ways love could look that they don't even feel the need to come out? What if we asked their friends and partners pronouns so that they know that any answer that they give would be celebrated? What if after telling them how much we would still love them if they were queer, rather than adding a caveat about how hard the world might be for them, we just changed the damn world? There's no organic way to finish this because I think the conversation itself still feels unfinished. But one way that I've been practicing working through my feelings and naming my experiences the past few years is writing poetry. So I wanted to leave you with one that I wrote recently. I have a working title, but it sounds really lame, so I'm not going to say it. If I could tell my 21-year-old self something, it would be that we beat the odds. I would tell her not to worry what other people think, and that no amount of makeup can paint on the perfect poker face. That you are not broken, you're just playing at the wrong table. There will be boys in clubs, and broken hearts, and best friends in spades to pick you up on the hardest days. There will be awkward moments where you don't feel right giving out your number, in university flings. There will be friends you think would be better as lovers just because they make you feel safe, but that first kiss will never quite hit right. But if you can just hang in there a little bit longer, it will get better. When you least expect it, someone will walk back into your life after 13 years and settle back in like you've wasted no time at all. You'll realize that even a touch on the shoulder can give you goosebumps, and that it's possible to feel lighter just because someone walks into a room. Your jaded heart will soften, and you'll finally believe people when they say, "My partner is just my best friend." There will be laughter and silliness, and poetry over morning coffee, and kisses that linger on your lips. You won't need to bluff anymore or contemplate your strategy because it's not you against them. Your personality is not a 12-sided die of all of your past failed relationships. Instead, you get to have the flowers, and the pink, and the button-up shirts, and as many suits as you want because your style and your pronouns are no one's damn business but your own. Champagne diamonds set in 18-karat golden summer sun to remind us of 7 years of combined sobriety, of our commitment to each other, but first and foremost to ourselves, to the younger us at summer camp sipping hot chocolate in the kitchen during chores, back when we lived 230 kilometers and somehow only 12 steps away from each other. If I could tell my 21-year-old self something, it would be that life isn't blackjack, but it is a gamble. I still don't think I understand all the rules, but I'll keep 31 as my lucky number, because I thought it was over and I was ready to fold. That it was too late to start all over again. An old maid with no game. I would tell her I was wrong. You get to pick yourself up again and start again, no matter where or when or who you are. But I would also tell her that the messy middle is a lie. It's all messy. All that matters is that we find the right person who's all in with us. Someone who appreciates a good 3-for-1 deal. We don't get to choose the cards that we're dealt, but I do get to choose someone to hold my hand every day of my life, through all the adventures that we have yet to embark on, because maybe this is just the beginning, and the best is definitely yet to come. So I don't care anymore if the house wins. We've made a home. When I get overwhelmed by money or school or work, I'll remember that we already have a full house and full bellies, and you tell me you love me every day. If you ask me, we hit the jackpot. Thank you.